Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be going through the general first steps I'll look at within a Google account or Google Ads account in terms of conducting an audit, suggested changes, and what I'd probably want to do in terms of next steps when looking at an account initially. This video is e-commerce specific, so it's probably less relevant to anyone that's doing lead gen or B2B, but I can do a separate one that is for that specifically. But otherwise, just going to jump straight into it. So initial insights. First things I'm going to look at are structure, the targeting and goals, and also the ad quality. Three clear areas in which to look at, and I'm going to go through them individually. But at the end of the day, it's like if you can tick off each of those boxes and do it well and know what you're looking for and how you can utilize each of those to improve performance within an account, you'll have very clear next steps to basically squeeze more juice out of the orange in any account that you're auditing. Structure. So I'll look at the campaign structure. So how many campaigns are they running? What types of campaigns are they running? I'll look at the budget split, both in terms of a few different areas. It'll be brand versus non-brand. It can also be, video compared to search, compared to PMAX, shopping, et cetera, and then also looking at their keyword relevance. So making sure that the keywords that they're targeting within Google Ads are set up efficiently and effectively, makes sense, and will basically drive the most efficient value for that client. Whether it is search types, the keywords themselves, is it the keyword volume? They're targeting keywords that have got limited search volume. Are some of them still basically impacting or picking up branded traffic? Is there a way we can exclude that? Which obviously there is. And essentially, working your way progressively down that line in terms of understanding the structure within the account, utilizing those insights, and then making changes to drive more performance from that account. My general guidance though will be, so for example, in an e-commerce account, it does depend on size. Some of the larger brands I work with, you will have a lot more campaigns running. You'll segment your shopping campaigns either by maybe product type or product category or product price. You'll have like brackets where it's maybe like $250 to $500 items, 500 to 1,000 plus, et cetera. But obviously understanding how you want that structured based on spend, where you'll find the most value and what works best for your client. And keep in mind, when it comes down to what works best for the client, it will vary from business to business. Some clients will basically just want high value items because they want to move them faster. Some will want to see more value. Some will have basically profit-based bidding and they'll know which items are most profitable and therefore want to put more budget behind them. And you can adjust that accordingly. But generally speaking, like I was saying, I would go, you always want a brand search campaign. Depending on the size of the account, you always want to have at least shopping or performance max. Usually you'll have multiple, especially if it's a big enough account, spending enough money with enough of a product range that you kind of want them segmented rather than having, products that are $100 running the same campaign as products that are $1,500. Realistically, Google will optimize spend towards whatever's going to sell more and get a higher rise to get you to spend more, which often is a lower ticket items, which usually doesn't benefit the business. So make sure you have it split. You have it very well detailed and documented, and it's done strategically. And then ad group, asset group breakdowns, very straightforward, making sure that obviously you've got them broken down by whatever relevant category you've got within that campaign. Targeting and goals. So make sure that you're looking at all the campaign settings. That is one of the first things that I look at. Once I've seen the initial structure, it's straight into settings to see how people are targeting and utilizing Google Ads to try and drive more conversions, but not only that, more efficient conversions. Because the one thing that people obviously, trying to word this correctly, but the one thing that people generally utilize Google for, and Google's well known for, especially within the industry now, is demand capture, not demand creation. Demand creation goes more so towards the social platforms, Meta, TikTok, et cetera. Google captures a lot of demand that's created elsewhere, whether it's organically or through other paid channels. So given Google is known for that, it's not like Meta where it's just like exclude, make sure everything's cold, because realistically you'll see pretty low ROI because it's not an effective platform for doing so. But you do want to make sure you've got an adequate budget split between new customers, returning customers, or branded traffic. So look at the bid strategy. What are they doing? Are they doing the right, setting the right goals within the campaigns? Are they optimizing towards conversions? Are they optimizing towards, efficiency, CPA? What's their kind of goal that they're doing for their brand search? Are they minimizing CPCs as much as possible? Because again, what you see most commonly is businesses or companies will optimize towards ROAS, even on their brand campaigns. But given that the consumers already search for their brand, you can assume they're pretty close to the bottom of funnel because they know who you are and they're looking for you. So instead of going towards ROAS as a bid strategy, you should probably look to reduce the costs, because at the end of the day, getting more people looking for your brand onto your site are going to convert anyway. And when they convert, the efficiency is going to be there regardless. So you don't necessarily need to optimize towards that, but you can squeeze more juice out of that budget to be as efficient as possible in your targeting. On top of that, locations targeting. Are you optimizing towards presence as opposed to presence or interest? And then also make sure that you are comparing for these, you have a look at the last 30-day data and also last year data. Because again, realistically, this is an account you've never seen before, so it's quite fresh. Last 30 days will give you a pretty good read on more like recent historical performance, and the last year will give you a gauge on essentially what the overall account average has been and therefore where you should be targeting. Because the thing is, last 30 days, it also can be seasonal. If I was to look at last 30 days right now, there'd be an element of Christmas, New Year's, those sorts of periods of performance that are included. If I did it from then, it'd be including Black Friday, which is probably the biggest skew you'll see in your data throughout the year. And then again, you make those comparisons to January, for example, when it's a bit quieter, the data won't necessarily align. Whereas at least 365 days, you an overall read on the year, and you can kind of benchmark from there. And yeah, like I mentioned, distinguish your new versus your returning customers. This should be reflected in the campaign types and the campaign budgets. So for example, brand search, makes sense. PMAX does retarget heavily. You can obviously use a negative brand list, which you can include to try and make it cold. But also at the same time, if you want that account capturing the demand through performance max shopping or search, you also want to have them included. But just make sure that your budgets are very delicately designed and positioned within the account based on the two pieces of information. Is it a warm consumer or a cold consumer? Because you can see Google work quite well for certain brands in terms of like cold search campaigns and definitely shopping campaigns with negative branded terms as well. And it can help to kind of grow accounts through that way, but then making sure from those consumers that you pick up in those campaigns, you've then got an alternative strategy to keep peppering them away through Google Ads to get them over the line. And finally, ad quality. You want to make sure that the quality of your current ads are good. And at the end of the day, you're going to have to look at your search ads, which is the headlines and descriptions, your shopping ads, which is the product naming convention and the search term relevance, PMAX and demand gen. So essentially images, videos, headlines, descriptions, basically a bundle of everything. And then also your assets and extensions. So basically site links and obviously at times also your promotions for your e-commerce brands. But realistically, when we look at these, the search ads, the headlines and descriptions, you want to make sure you've got all the boxes ticked. I personally do enjoy pinning headlines. If there's something I know is going to sell, like I'm running an ad for a sale or something of the sorts, realistically, I am going to pin it because that's what's going to get the most attention, even though Google will make your ad quality go from good to average or excellent to good or average to bad. Yeah, I think you obviously know people well enough and what they're looking for, where they'll find value to know what needs to be pinned. If there isn't anything clear that's like a standout, then do leave it unpinned. But yeah, don't necessarily allow that to dictate every movement you're going to make within the account. On top of that, shopping ads, so product naming conventions, which is hugely important because the thing is with shopping ads, right? It's not like search where you're looking at search, well, you can look at search terms, but you're not setting the keywords. You're not making those sorts of optimizations day in, day out. A lot of the time you'll create the shopping campaign, put the products in there and then just let them run. So your product name will determine what it shows to, what keywords, what search terms. So you need to make sure it's as optimized as possibly can be to ensure that you get the results that you desire from that campaign, because you're not going to be doing a lot of manual adjustments throughout the week, month, or year on a shopping campaign. In terms of name conventions, I would certainly advise have the brand name in there, the product name in there, color, size, etc., etc. Tick all those boxes to make sure it's as clear as possible and make sure it is very clearly labeled. You don't want it to be messy, but you also don't want it to be too empty because you will get very, very vague searches. So make sure your product title is specific so it shows up for people that are looking for something very similar to what you're offering to make sure that the conversion and the efficiency is actually high overall. PMAX and demand gen, the images, videos, headlines, descriptions. Headline descriptions basically goes the same as what you would see for search. But then the images and videos, make sure you've got relevant images, high quality images, same with videos. Make sure they're engaging, make sure they'll basically, again, for videos, kind of like your social precedents that you'll set, make sure you've got a strong hook, something that will basically get attention, get people watching and keep them hooked to your video from the get-go. And make sure you get those view-throughs. And then for images, just make sure it's relevant to what you're offering. So if it's a PMAX campaign, you'll probably have a shopping feed attached, and you can do the same thing through demand gen. Make sure the images, the manual images, the creatives are relevant to what you're offering and the headlines and the descriptions, and make sure it all kind of encapsulates what needs to be covered within that campaign. Because if you've got, you're pushing, let's say you're pushing a bedding range through the listing group, and then you've got creatives of, dining range within the ads, and then your headlines talk about just, garden or outdoor furniture, like there is going to be very little cohesion through that campaign, which will actually negate the value that PMAX provides, which is hitting users through a number of different placements to get them to convert through the funnel. So make sure that's very clearly covered and make sure you keep it, aligned and on track with what the actual very clear, unique message is you're trying to push for your brand. Otherwise, that's all. That is, basically my Google Ads top level audit within 10 minutes. Thank you very much for watching, and let me know if there's any questions.